So I will immediately invite on stage the four knowledgeable and very pleasant companions of the panel. So Mr. Professor Dr. Sinan Akar, Director of Catastrophe Modeling and Data Analytics Department from TRAPT, Mr. Laurent Maresco, Senior Director for Moody's Insurance, Dario Schiller, Business Development Manager, Ultimate Risk Solutions and CC Consulting SPA, and Mehsen Mehmeh, Divisional Director for Gallagher Re. All these very nice and knowledgeable gentlemen will walk us through different issues related to the impact of technology, in particular AI and the latest development in this area, starting from modeling, going through underwriting to portfolio management, very interesting solutions, hopefully of real use for you all. So, at this point, please welcome again Dr. Sinan Akar. He is a professional with a distinguished and very rich academic background at Bogazici and Stanford universities, an extensive work on seismic hazard and risk projects worldwide, leading now an expert in ground motion models and probabilistic risk modeling for TRAPT. I may say that I have followed their activity since the earthquake in Kahramanmaraş, and it's quite impressive the level of precision they have reached and in their prediction, as far as I can tell. Professor Akar, please, the floor is yours. One last remark, because of time restraints, I would kindly ask you if you can shorten a little bit your presentation to 15 minutes, if possible.
Daniela, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me here. As Daniela indicated, I am actually coming from the university, from academia. So, I mean, relatively still, I feel like I am new in insurance, reinsurance industry here. This is the second time I'm attending this conference. Last year, it was my first time. I showed some theoretical aspects of loss modeling. Now, I'm going to show not only the theoretical aspects because of my academic background, but also some implementations that we have been working together with my colleagues in TRAPT. The title of my talk is Earthquake Loss Modeling, from single scenario to multiple scenarios, from single location to multiple locations. I'm going to walk you through all of these, say, components one by one. Today in the morning, I listened to a very interesting session. Most of the speakers mentioned about the importance of AI technologies, implementation of AI technologies. What I'm going to present you is nothing related to AI. I hope it's not a disappointment for you. I know that AI is quite important. The technical background or theoretical background of AI is quite complicated, and still it is sort of being developed. And most of the time, the AI applications for comparison or for evaluation are compared with traditional approaches, and I'm going to present you some traditional approaches in loss modeling. All right, this much of background is good enough. So the outline of my presentation is, firstly, I'm going to talk about loss prediction via single or multiple earthquake scenarios at single or multiple locations. And then, as I indicated, I'm going to show you some applications through the tools that we developed in T-Rapt. Now, what do I mean by single or multiple scenarios? Or what do I mean by single or multiple locations? Well, firstly, the single scenario, or you can call it as scenario-based loss analysis. I mean, when you implement this kind of approach, the losses are computed from a single earthquake, and generally, this earthquake represents the most critical rupture scenario that is likely to trigger critical loss levels. Why do we pick the most critical earthquake scenario? Well, because the insured wants to decide on the minimum level of insurance coverage from ground-up conditions. The insured, say, the owner of an industrial facility, he or she wants to know the minimum level of insurance coverage from ground-up loss conditions, and for this case, he or she would need the most critical scenario. The underwriting teams, they want to shape the policy statements for earthquake limits and risk transfer conditions, and again, for such cases, you need to consider the most critical scenario. And then the reinsurance retrocession teams, they would like to assess the suitability of earthquake limits in proportional agreements and or limits layering structure considered in CAT excess of loss agreements. Again, for such cases, we need the most critical rupture scenario or the most critical earthquake scenario. And in this sense, our country, Turkey, is a sort of good laboratory, or the implementation of single rupture scenarios or scenario-based loss analysis is critical because our faults are what we call as mature faults. In other words, the occurrence of characteristic earthquakes are quite periodic along the North Anatolian fault zone or along the East Anatolian fault zone. By the way, in 2023, the first earthquake, the magnitude 7.8 earthquake, it was, it was told that it was a shocking surprise. Actually, among the earth scientists, it was not a shocking surprise because those ruptures, the ruptured segments in the first earthquake, they haven't been ruptured for about, I would say, 600 or 700 years. And people were expecting, the earth scientists, in their conferences, in their closed-door conferences, they were expecting a big one along those ruptured segments, and it essentially happened. Again, the Marmara Sea earthquakes, I mean, the characteristic, the return periods of characteristic earthquakes and the location of the characteristic earthquakes in the Marmara Sea, it's well known. So any insurance or reinsurance, say, company, they do want to know about the likely losses for such cases, and in that sense, Turkey, as I told you, is a natural laboratory. That's why we emphasize the importance of scenario-based earthquakes in our loss analyses. The second one is more traditional, the conventional one. You use multiple earthquakes, and they are represented by the so-called stochastic earthquake catalogs. Essentially, stochastic earthquake catalogs represent the yearly seismic activity of a region, all right, or of a country, or, say, of a continent. Essentially, what you are doing is you just study the seismic activity of the region of interest, the country of interest, and then you simulate earthquake catalogs, and then you implement each one of those with the likelihood of occurrence, yearly likelihood of occurrence, and then you compute the losses, and you represent them by the so-called return periods or annual exceedance probabilities. Again, I'm not going to go over each one of these items because more or less I'm going to indicate the same things. For the insured, they want to decide on, again, the minimum level of insurance coverage, but this time not by using a single event, but by using, say, a target return period or annual exceedance probability. And again, also for underwriting teams or reinsurance and retrocession teams, they again use the stochastic loss results for assessing the policy premiums, the so-called average annual loss ratios or average annual losses. And then, again, the reinsurance and retrocession teams, they evaluate the earthquake limits or layering structure of excess of loss agreements for predetermined target return periods. And also, again, the same teams evaluate the net post-cat losses after applying the catastrophic excess of loss losses for predetermined periods to decide on the likely net burden on their company after a given excess of loss agreement. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to walk you through each one of these methodologies one by one because I want you to see the background calculations a bit. Not the whole thing, but a bit. Because I want you to understand how the things are getting more and more complicated when you start deeping dive into the problem. Now, the simplest one is a single asset and a single site, all right? So say that I have a rupture a risk, and then this fault is rupturing for a specific length, all right? And what I do is I directly start calculating the likely loss for each likely ground motion intensity, and then I am multiplying it with the probability of that intensity metric, all right? So this is a simple summation. So the first component here is the so-called vulnerability functions. And the second component here is the ground motion itself, all right? So in a way, this is the most simple and way of finding a loss for a scenario. Now, the second one is the single event and multiple, say, two assets. We have a single event, but now we have multiple assets, and I'm going to give you the case study for two assets. Now, in this case, this is my first asset, and this is the second asset, again, the ruptured fault segment. And now you see different ground motion intensity metrics are affecting, or different ground motions, because the sites are different, are affecting the risks, these two risks. And essentially now the summation becomes a bit more complicated. Now I'm going to, again, calculate the likelihood of exceedance of losses, not only for the first site, but also for the second site at the same time. And then, this is the case. Now I need to consider the loss correlation of the risks, and also I need to consider the ground motion correlation, because these two sites, they are not different. I mean, they are being affected by the same earthquake, so you have to consider the correlation of ground motion of these two sites. Also, depending on the closeness, proximity of these two sites, to these two risks, you have to consider the correlation of losses to have a good estimate of loss. Now, things are getting a bit more complicated, and you obtain what we call as loss exceedance probability curve. Now, I'm going to move one step further. Now, I have multiple events, so n-year earthquake catalog, and then a single asset, only a single asset. Now I'm going to, as I indicated, apply each one of these events from the synthetic earthquake catalog, and I'm going to consider the occurrence probability, the yearly occurrence probability of each one of those earthquakes, all right? Now, again, now with this, I'm going to have, because it's a single site, I don't need to consider the correlation problem. Again, the vulnerability, the earthquake frequency, and then I get the loss distribution. I'm not going to walk you through the most complicated one, multiple sites, and by making use of an earthquake catalog, a synthetic earthquake catalog, because it's going to be quite boring. But what I'm going to say is that the same type of, now I'm going to have another summation sign over there, and then I need to consider for each case the correlation between, the loss correlation between the two risks, between the risks, as well as the ground motion correlation between the sites. So as you see, the problem is getting more and more complicated when you go into the details of the problem, or when you when you want to know more about different, say, results for a given problem. That's why we have the tools. That's why we have the tools for insurance or reinsurance experts, all right? And as I indicated, all of those, that technical background, theoretical background, is being properly implemented by those tools. This morning, I was just listening to the audience, again, one of the speakers. There is no good model, he said, but there is this realistic model. Some of them are realistic, some of them are not. Essentially, the tools run the mathematics. The model itself is different. The model itself is the ground motion model you are implementing. The model itself is the vulnerability model you are implementing, all right? So I'm going to show you our tools which implements the mathematics as well as our models for Turkey. The first one is the scenario-based loss model for portfolio and for a given portfolio, and the second application is going to be stochastic loss model for a single risk. All right. So this is the first application. I hope I will be able to do it. So Hulki Bey, could you please just start this? I mean, there should be. Okay. Now here we go. Okay. Can you please just stop? So essentially, this application, essentially, we buried multiple scenarios that are likely to occur in this country, in Turkey. These scenarios, if you can move a bit more. No, the previous slide. Yeah. Now, yeah, just over there. Yeah, great. Now you see the scenarios. You see, yeah, multiple scenarios. Each one of those are there. So some of them are in the Marmara region. Some of them are, move ahead, please. Yeah, some of them are in the Marmara region. Some of them are in the other regions and so forth, all right? So we have, no. Go back, please. Can I do it from there? Anyway, so can I do it here? No, I cannot. Can I do it here? No, I cannot. You just move on. I'm going to continue. So each one of these scenarios have, each one of these. Can I move? Can I get my mouse? Your mouse? Oh, great. This is great. Oh, great. Thank you very much. All right.
4 minutes.
All right.
Maybe.
Okay. I'll be quick. So essentially, now, each one of those scenarios are run by our team, and for each case, we develop the ground motion distribution as given here. Essentially, you can picture the ground motion distribution, or you can picture the corresponding intensity scale for a given rupture. And then, if you want to enter a portfolio, you pick the portfolio. You choose the file for the portfolio, and then in the second window, you input the relevant information for the specific portfolio. Now, the code runs, has already completed the calculations. Now you want to see the results. The first thing that you may wonder is the exposure information in hand. So different breakdowns. And now, for example, here, what I'm showing the distribution of total exposure for each cresta along in the Marmara region. So for cresta 3, these are the exposure, the total exposure. And now we have also, we tabulate the exposure for different breakdowns by city, by provinces. Either in a tabulated format or in a pie chart format for, say, fire or engineering portfolios. And then, essentially, you may want to find, you may want to see the losses. So in terms of that, you can look at the ground-up losses, gross losses for different breakdowns. So again, you can see, for example, the ground-up mean losses for each cresta from the map, as given here on the upper left corner. Or, again, you can tabulate the loss results for each province, the loss statistics actually, median, mean, or the tail portion losses for each province, yes. You can compute the ground, you can see the ground-up losses, you can see the gross losses for different breakdowns. And also, you can make a comparison of these loss statistics for the provinces considered in the loss analysis. And if you are sort of a more, say, analytical person, and if you want to repopulate the loss distribution for your own purposes, we also provide you the loss distribution for a specific breakdown. So essentially, this is essentially one of the tools that we have worked on to provide you the loss analysis for scenario-based loss modeling. Now, what I'm going to show you is now the stochastic loss analysis. Now, this time, I'm going to give you input relevant information for a single risk at a single site. Now, you see, it's going to be a ground-up loss analysis again. I'm entering the province, the district, the currency, type of, say, line of business, all of this information. I'll move a bit faster. And after inputting the entire, say, relevant information, I run the code, and then essentially I got first. Sorry, I'm going to, yeah. I got first the loss results in terms of return periods, and also I have the average annual loss value, which can be used for premium calculations by underwriting teams. And I can see the location of the risk. I can see the faults affecting the seismicity in the vicinity of the risk and so forth. And I can also see the site conditions in the, at the location of the risk as well. Now, then on a tabulated format, I can see, or graphics, I can see the losses for the computed ground up and gross financial structures. And again, I can obtain the tabulated results from another screen as well. And this is the financial structure for that specific risk for ground up losses. Now, if you have a layered structure, insurance structure, then you input the relevant layer information. Say this is a two-layer policy structure. And then after defining the earthquake loss limit and everything, you just again start running the code. And now this time you will have the net pre-cat loss for the given layered structure agreement. Again, the most critical information, the loss distributions graphically presented, and also for different return periods. We calculate up to 10,000 year return period, and also the tabulated loss results. Now, note that there is lots of zeros here for different return periods or annual exceedance probabilities because of the deductible or attachment point, high attachment point in the given policy conditions. And with that, we also present you the relevant, the layering structure of the agreement. Okay. Actually, this is the end of my talk. Yeah. Thank you very much for your patience. I tried to summarize the overall applications that we worked on recently to help the insurance, reinsurance teams for different perspectives, essentially. As I tried to emphasize, the background theory is not that much simple. The most important thing is to have a good calculator engine and also a realistic model to guide the relevant expert to take decisions on the different aspects of insurance and reinsurance, say, issuance. Thank you very much.
Thank you also very much. It's, well, frankly speaking, I don't understand very much in the end because it's a very technical presentation, but what I can, without any doubt, understand is that the progress is huge. And I remember, Laurent, how many years are since we were speaking in Bucharest about modeling cat risk in Romania? About 20?
2017.
And something like the actual models and the modeling activity at that time, maybe it was science fiction considered. So, remaining with the modeling topic, we will now explore how the latest catastrophe models, enhanced by machine learning, cloud technology, and now generative AI, are transforming accuracy and insight in risk management. And to share his expertise, Laurent Maresco here with us. To speak about his professional background, it's enough to say that he has a very long and successful career within RMS and now Moody's, and he acts as advisor for lots of companies, national bodies, regulators, etc., in what regards catastrophe, agriculture, cyber, terrorism risks. So, Laurent,
Thank you.
from a global perspective.
Thank you, Daniela, for this nice introduction, and thank you for inviting me to speak about how the latest advances in machine learning and generative AI are transforming the way we work with catastrophe models. So I will give you this perspective from the Moody's, previously RMS, Risk Management Solution. Maybe you know better RMS than Moody's in this world of catastrophe modeling, but we belong now to Moody's as a family. So you may ask why AI now in catastrophe modeling and why now? Just briefly to introduce this, I think probably one of the first reasons why we need now to use machine learning and AI in catastrophe modeling is basically because of the data explosion, as we call it. Basically, we have a high volume, high variety of data. Some of the data are images, some are text, some are just measurements. So we need to federate that data and basically make sense of that. And this is where traditional statistical techniques start to fail and where machine learning can unfold the potential. Another reason is, of course, as you are aware, we have a rising complexity of our risk, either geophysical earthquake risk or climate risk, flood risk, and so on. So we need more high-resolution, advanced model where machine learning can bring, of course, the potential as well to improve. And finally, you as a user, you know that you need speed, accuracy, and this is also, I will show you a little bit how you can now navigate through those catastrophe models using generative AI and large language model, actually. So I try to articulate this talk, actually, into three different pathways. The first, as you can see, this is talking about how machine learning can enhance catastrophe model. Then touching a little bit about can we create a CAT model using only machine learning? This is a touchy topic, and you will see that it's actually not that easy, but we can still derive some useful simplistic modeling or deterministic model based on machine learning purely. And finally, as you can see about generative AI and intelligent agent, how all this AI story is actually transforming the way you do catastrophe modeling as a user. So let's start with the first, which is this machine learning enhanced probabilistic model. So just before in this call, we have a good presentation about what catastrophe model is actually, right? I think this is something that, of course, the insurance industry has been using as a standard, right? And it provides, as you see, right, expected loss, PML value, and so on. It's a very sound framework. So the core question is actually, can we create this kind of full framework using just machines and not humans? Well, I would say the most pragmatic answer is no, or not yet, I would say. Probably the best practice today is to still have this kind of core backbone based on physics and traditional statistics, but of course enhance different components of catastrophe model with machine learning. And that's basically the best approach, I would say, we can do today. For many reasons why we are not using machine learning natively for that. I can elaborate on that later on if you want. But that's basically, I would say, the best practice today. So to give you an example about how specific component could be enhanced by machine learning, one of the first elements is probably how to improve digital terrain model or topographical model. You can imagine when you want to model flood risk, tsunami, storm surge, or even geotechnical earthquake modeling, you need to have an accurate representation of the topography. And this is where usually you need high resolution, and those high resolution data, they are very frequently measured using airplane measurements with a LiDAR or laser measurement, and they will pick, for example, the first echo of a tree of a house. And you end up with a topographical model that looks like this. This is not what you want, right, to model flood risk. You have all these artifacts due to different buildings. So if you use typically deep learning algorithms that are trained on high resolution topographical data, ground truth, without artifact, you can see that actually you can retrieve quite a lot of that, you can remove actually quite a lot of those artifacts. You can see, for example, this is a transect in Akita in Japan, where you see actually the blue curve is the original digital terrain model with all the spikes due to the buildings. And actually, you can see here in the black curve is the machine learning output that has been trained and that can be compared with the red curve, which is the ground truth measurement, if you want, right? So that's typically the kind of approach where machine learning can bring a lot in enhancing this kind of critical component for probabilistic modeling. To give you another example, probably where machine learning can help a lot, I would say, is not only just by using one specific data, but it's merging different type of very different type of data. For example, when you need to create, I would say, a soil map, right, for earthquake modeling, you know that the first tenth meter of the soil is highly influencing the ground shaking during an earthquake. And now you want to capture that in a very precise way. So you want, of course, to use traditional geophysical data, but also remote sensing data, maybe microzonation studies that are only available in a PDF document, maybe geological map. Those are different type of data that you need to marry together, to bring together, right? And for example, machine learning here is super useful to do that. They can, for example, you see on the right, sorry, analyze automatically a geological map. It can categorize the geology, right, in terms of different shapes, and even relate that with the text document you can find in the geological legend. And if you mix all that information, of course, you can imagine this is enhancing a lot the way you will model soil characteristics for earthquake modeling. This is where I would say machine learning is the most powerful. It's going beyond traditional statistics in being able to combine different data sets that are nothing to do together, right? An image and a text and a data set in the database of measurement, for example. Of course, maybe another example on this pathway number one about enhancing probabilistic model is not only just providing the data to build a better model, but that's also, I would say, using machine learning to improve your exposure. We, as a modeler, we need exposure to calibrate the model, so we need to know exactly what is the risk at building level, if possible, but you, as a user, you need also exposure to manage your risk. And this is typically what this company, Cape Analytics, have been doing for quite some time in the US. Now they try to expand a bit elsewhere around the world, and it has been acquired by Moody's maybe 1 year ago. And now they are expert in processing all this kind of data into scalable machine learning to characterize buildings. So for example, you can see here the capacity to model the geometry of a house, the roof of the roof, the quality of the roof as an example, the number of stories, and so on. So this is super useful to calibrate a model, but also, as you can imagine, you as a user, you can also use that for your underwriting decision in terms of eligibility, pricing, monitoring a risk in time, or even, I would say, optimizing your on-site visit with your underwriters. As an example here, this is, well, you know, in the US, they are really, they need to manage the hurricane risk, so the type of roof is super important. Maybe it's different for earthquake in Turkey, right, of course. But here in this example, you see they were typically monitoring a specific building automatically. And you know, in 2020, the category of the roof was really poor. They decided not to underwrite this risk. Now, they revised the decision in 2022 because the owner renewed the roof, and in 2023, they could even see that he removed actually the trees that were close to the house or the premise. So you see, this kind of information is actually pretty useful because it helps you to avoid claims, to align premium, but also, I would say, which is important, to interact with the owner, your policy holder, they can take action to reduce the risk, which is beneficial to you as well. So that's a few examples about how, you see, we keep the backbone of CAT modeling, and we actually are enhancing some of those components. Now, the core question is, can we completely create a CAT model with machine learning? As I said, it's very difficult to do, and maybe not very realistic today. But actually, what we can try to do is actually to use machine learning to create some simplistic deterministic scenario or data assets that can help you to manage your risk. So you don't get a probabilistic model that gives you, for example, a PML measurement and so on, but that will give you some idea about the hazard for underwriting the decision and loss accumulation. So to make it a bit more real, you can see here in terms of creating flood maps, as an example. So we do have a probabilistic model for flood in the US, in Europe, in Japan, in China. Unfortunately, sorry for that, nothing for Turkey at this point of time. So why not train a machine learning algorithm to reproduce flood maps in regions where we do have a flood model, and then actually use this trained algorithm to reproduce flood map in regions where we do not have flood model, for example, using local climate data, local reality, right, from Turkey. And this is exactly what you can get here as an example of those flood maps. They can give you, if you want, you can pick a point, and they will give you, OK, every 100 years, I can expect to have 1 meter of flooding at this place in Ankara, as an example. So that's really very useful. It's not a full model. It doesn't give you this PML, but the machine learning model is informing you about underwriting the decision. To make it a bit more illustrative, this is a real example that happens for a flood in 2022 in Durban, in South Africa, where a large industrial site was flooded, and actually a constructor or a motor manufacturer was affected. I hidden the name, but they have a massive drop of shares or basically because of that. Of course, on this side, they don't have a lot of flood data. But if you look at the machine learning generated flood maps, you can see that every 200 years, you can expect to have a good 2 meters of water, which is pretty big. So as an underwriter, you can take a decision based on that, right? That's good use. So it's not a fully fleshed catastrophe model, but that's actually providing you some insight to inform your underwriting. So we saw a little bit those two approaches about using machine learning to enhance the probabilistic catastrophe modeling framework, try to use machine learning to drive the creation of data assets for you to manage your risk. Now, the question is, how can we now better work with those data or talk to those data and models, right? Usually, you have to go to an interface to do some coding, sometimes to extract information. Now, we have the booming emergence, I would say, over the past 3-4 years of large language model. ChatGPT is an example. So we could imagine now we can actually use generative AI to work with CAT models as well. One of the first very basic application we can think of, and this is basically what we have already implemented, by the way, is actually take all the modeling documentation that is in the PDF format and train a language model based on that, so that you can interrogate this document in a plain human language. So for example, if you are a CAT modeler, you are running an earthquake model as an example, and you don't know exactly what is the code for weak masonry in this Moody's RMS model, usually you have to stop working on the model, you have to go to the PDF, look where it is, oh, this is this code, and then going back and continue to analyze your portfolio. Here you can just click and ask this question in human language. And do we get the answer? Of course, we need to be aware to provide a reference so that it's always possible for you to check if this is accurate or not to avoid what we call hallucinations. That's one example, right? That's, of course, just a static reading of the existing documentation. We can move a step forward. You can ask the machine. OK, sorry, I forgot about that. You can ask this in English, but also in Turkish. So I wouldn't leave this slide too long, because I'm not sure the Turkish is super good. But actually, I tried to ask how to code house close in HD models in Turkish, and this is the answer. Maybe you prefer to talk in your own language. This is, of course, well possible now. What I was about to ask is about the next step, which is actually to not only ask static information from document, but also to ask to produce some analytics based on this generative AI. So, for example, if you ask this question, which region is driving the increase in flood mean damage ratio in Q3 in my portfolio? What you would do as a CAT analyst, you would have to maybe create a script to extract this information from the model you run, maybe combine with another data sets with your claims, maybe have a script to produce a picture, or maybe export that data, copy-paste in Excel, create a graph, copy that graph in PowerPoint, or no, maybe a Word, what you want. It's very tedious, right? So with this tool, actually, what you can do is just ask this question and ask the tool to produce the graph for you. And this is super, of course, helpful, because it's streamlined and make your workflow much more efficient in this case. Even you can do this without any coding kind of knowledge. And I think for me, what of the core message here is that it's helping also to democratize the access of data, because even if you don't know how to code, you can actually question those models in this way. And the last step, which is where we go, and actually this is booming, so I guess we have all to be prepared for the next 15 years. This will be a reality in our business as well, is to work with intelligent agents. We are intelligent humans. We work with a lot of data every day, cat models, loss data, exposure data. So if you don't know what intelligent agents are, actually, this is like your digital colleagues that are here for you. This is like machine learning or AI entities that have been highly trained on a specific task, like underwriting, pricing, cat modeling. And they are actually not only working on their specialty, but they talk together, they collaborate, they can even self-improve themselves with time. And this is basically something that you can use to ask a very complex task. For example, there's an earthquake in Turkey. Take this portfolio, run that on that specific event, get that metrics out, create a graph, send me that graph by email. For example, this is a very complex task to cast, and all those agents will do that for you. So again, this is really something that will boost your productivity in the sense that your human brain is no longer used to manipulate data, do copy-paste, and these kind of things. It can be refocused on strategy, growth, where we are good, innovation, right? That's the future. We are not there yet, but I think maybe in a couple of years it will be a reality in the cat modeling world. So hopefully this gave you a little bit of a background. I don't know, Daniela, if I managed to rush a bit to win a few minutes, but actually I gave you a little bit an overview about how we can enhance probabilistic model with machine learning, how we can try now to derive some natively based, machine learning-based assets like these flood maps, and how we can work in the future with generative AI and intelligent agent in the cat modeling world. I'm sure we have some questions after that, but I'm, of course, very happy to engage with you after that session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laurent. Also for the speed. I think very helpful.
Fast. Sorry for that, but
sorry. No, it was very helpful. So from modeling, the next step remains in the reinsurance realm, but it's closer to the portfolio management and the specialized platform to help reinsurance in their daily operations. And we will hear about all these things from an experienced insurance and reinsurance executive with a career spanning Allianz Group, reinsurance brokerage in London, and senior leadership roles in Europe and Mexico, namely Mr. Dario Schiller, Business Development Manager for Ultimate Risk Solution and C Consulting SPA. So,
Prego?
Si, prego.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, for our participants here, should you want to ask some questions, here is the QR code who leads you to the Slido application where you can write them and they will reach our speakers in the short time. Please, Dario.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. I will very quickly thank the organization to give me the opportunity to be here and then jump to what I have to say, just to cut times, I hope. What I want to do is to present two products of two different firms. One is C Consulting, an Italian firm with its X layers. The other one is Ultimate Risk Solutions, an American firm with its daughter company in Italy, with its Risk Explorer. Two platforms that, being totally different between them, have the characteristics to serve one of the most important functions in insurance, that is reinsurance. This function has two faces, like a coin, and that is study and model the most efficient reinsurance structure and cheap in terms of cost. But these last words, however, opens a discussion about the administration of the reinsurance. If I'm not able to administer what I think is the most efficient and cheap reinsurance structure, I could not do the best thing for my company. This could generate a problem. Imagine not a perfect accountability and reporting for a claim because it's not captured correctly, or not at all. Let's think for a moment the insurance company like a life body. Can you imagine what is the company appetite to eat as much as possible risks and businesses to grow healthy and robust as any living body? Now, if we define this function and the stomach of the company, reinsurance software is the stomach of an insurance company. And X layers is the stomach. What does X layers? Let's see if, okay, good. X layers does continuously processing and digesting premiums, claim recoveries, commissions, reserves, detecting indigestions before crises come up like misalignments, gaps, delays, supporting complex reinsurance diets like proportional treaties, non-proportional layers, facultatives, excess of loss with all the imaginable mixtures. The risk not or wrongly processed make to sit heavily in the balance sheet and are potentially toxic. As this variety of reasons, manual processes, variety of information sources, lack of reconciliation of accounts, legacy spreadsheet, Excel basically, fragmented tools. This can result in operational inefficiency, retention surprises. Yes, I can find some retention that I didn't want to have no surprise in the compliance, deterioration of relationship with my insurance partners, maybe loss of credibility. The risk of a seeding company is around the compliance, the local laws, the solvency. I mentioned Solvency II here. This is not the case for Turkey, but you have, in any case, some solvency rules. The IFRS 17, the GDPR, it's also an issue. Some audits like to check and process the correct data to avoid mistakes, re-execute what we executed already to have the traceability of the same data to make good reports, to have leakages because of manual management, the complexity of the structures, the know-how that sometimes leave the company because of turnover, and the speed. All companies are requested to be quicker and quicker in their accounts. By the way, I have to mention one research of Aon, I think, yes, that was measuring on average the 4% of leakage, 4% of premium, like leakage of claims do not recouped to the form of the insurance. Some unexpected result in the profit and loss. Some financial internal simulation calculations that are very difficult and many times not done because the lack of a tool. Of course, the solvency, having a good report in rating of the insurers, of aging of debts on credits, and so forth. Parent company, sometime, or the business partner, they want consistency. And timeline is very, very quick, very tight. So from an opportunistic tool came to an essential driver in capitalization and balance sheet policy. And the insurance calculation use unaudited data so that the tool for the traceability and of the process of calculation is essential. I will skip quickly to help my relator that this is some tools of X layers that make the user able to be the real owner of all the process and helping in a lot of reporting, controlling, and making all the manage their own reports anytime as they prefer. So no matter how much food going back to the stomach and variety of kind of you eat, but it's important how you process it. And I think I avoid the gastroenterologist. This seems to be a good decision. Glad to meet you in person today or anytime in a call to continue this conversation. Let's go now test our insurance structure with several options that reinsurance technology and the market offer, stressing the expected results without being scared by the long recalculation efforts that each one will stress our organization, and without mentioning the human factor and the possible error, just because we have a tool that very quickly and efficiently return the indicators, the key KPI that we need to decide this Risk Explorer. Now, the Risk Explorer can, with one run normally minutes in a simple, normal laptop, compare some alternative reinsurance solutions. And for each one of them, show us several factors that should influence our decision. But why this is something wrong? Okay. Why this risk analysis of reinsurance evaluation is central for the good corporate management? Well, board of directors and executives need comprehensive understanding of risks in order to select the best strategy. To decide the reinsurance strategy, line of business selection, pricing strategy, companies, management should have access to an internal, independent view of their insurance expenditure. The evaluation of cost of their insurance is crucial because it's the most important item of expenses after probably the payroll and the claims. And is such large expenditure always efficient? This is a question. The best protection is not necessarily the most expensive. And insurers need internal insurance analysis and capabilities. Here you can see in a very simple graph how, considering the dots, claims of the past, but you have to consider the possibility, the theoretical possibility of having biggest claims, and without a modeling, without a stochastic model, you cannot evaluate how much is the possible loss and the possible reinsurance cost. Once again, here the growth of capital is always an issue, and reinsurance is always a factor that taking in account and under control the capital of the company. If you see here, there is Risk Explorer also split into the various, automatically into the various line of business, the capital that is necessary, required by the business, by the portfolio, before and after the insurance, and having evaluated also the result, the profit or the loss that each line of business generate is expected from this generation. You can also, is this calculated also the return at risk of each insurance product. So that is the insurance optimization is the ultimate objective, to find the best insurance program, and which for a selected level of capital of risk, net of insurance, would maximize the return of such capital. What this does in effect, Risk Explorer offers a complete holistic model solution with property and casualty area. All software can operate independently or feed in for a complete solution, covering risk transfer, design, pricing, optimization, business planning, risk quantification and mitigation, reinsurance evaluation, the economical capital evaluation, and distribution throughout the line of business, and financial statement modeling and consolidation. Financial statements that will be on all GAAP standards or IFRS standards, so IFRS 17 standards. More in detail, the users, it works like the user defines a model by making a series of decisions with a model construct take place automatically. Additional keys with Risk Explorer include out-of-the-box functionalities. Each section of project has predefined properties, which allows the user to choose what they need and what they need. Risk Explorer has also inbuilt automatic report functionalities. So you see the financial from various points of view, like full value, calendar year, underwriting year, cash flows, etc. Contains wizards with which calculate and distribute economical capital automatically, and the return on capital, and each part of the model, of course, ensure that nothing is left unintentionally, thus avoiding extensive auditing. I finished here. I put this nice face of this lady. The intention was to use the artificial intelligence for translating in Turkish. Somebody told me that the translation was horrible. So this is a demonstration that artificial intelligence is not working efficiently anytime. Anyway, I'm at your disposal for any continuous chat about these items. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dario. And now we have reached the last stop of this journey. We will find out about Gallagher Re's optimizer structuring dashboard, described as a groundbreaking platform that brings speed, visualization, and real-time interactivity to reinsurance pricing. And to provide us with information on this topic will be Mehsen Nehmet, Divisional Director at Gallagher Re in London. He leads the actuarial analytics for the Turkish team and has an expanded experience in many areas of the reinsurance business, as well in many geographies. Yes. Mehsen, please, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I'll make it quick, promise. So let me start by saying that at Gallagher, we always invest in AI and digital innovation in reinsurance, internally and externally. Internally, for example, we have our own Gallagher AI. So instead of using ChatGPT or any public platform, we use our own Gallagher AI. So we make sure that the data is secure and there's no any data breaches. And externally, it will lead me to my presentation today. This is where the idea of Insight started. So Insight is a modern digital platform that would combine all the client's information into one single platform. It's like a dashboard. We can say that it can contain the advanced analytics that we perform for our clients, event responses, anything related to renewal. We can have as well the servicing. Everything will be like in one single platform, and provided by, of course, digital tools that I'm gonna talk about one of them today. And the most important part about it that it's very visually appealing, and it's like it makes the user comfortable to use it, because you can make any platform as fancy as possible, especially with all the technology that we have now, all the AI that we achieved. But in the end, we need something very simple, something that will make the client confident and precise when using it. And the good thing about this dashboard is that it's a year-round partnership. So it's from the pre-placement to the post-placement. Whenever you start planning your strategy, and then when we start performing the DFA analysis, the CAT modeling, any event responses, up to when executing the strategy, the renewal process, and then, of course, when we monitor after the renewal. This dashboard will give you all the need in one single platform. And because I'm an actuary, I'm going to talk about one digital tool in this platform, which is called the Optimizer Structuring Dashboard. What is Optimizer Structuring Dashboard? It's a new, modern tool as well. It's a pricing tool that will facilitate the reinsurance pricing and structuring. So the user can have everything in one single platform. Just by clicking, by choosing a structure, you can add any layer you want, you can adjust the pricing, and then you can export it to PowerPoint or Excel. So everything is easy. It's keeping, of course, the client in mind. So we wanted something very simple. And the way it works is that once we receive, let's say, the data from the client, we have something called Optimizer Online, which is our internal developed risk modeling and pricing, mainly used by actuaries. So based on this data, we perform our gross modeling. Once we have our gross modeling, it will directly integrate to this Optimizer Structuring Dashboard. So once it's integrated there, the user can access this platform, and they can, let's say, edit the structure, edit the pricing, come up with new alternative structure, export everything to PowerPoint or Excel, and by this, there's no more like time consuming. By this time, you can use it to maybe plan a strategy or maybe test other deductibles. So you can do multiple stuff instead of just cloning a structure, pricing it again, asking the actuaries. And the most important bit of it is it doesn't require a lot of technical knowledge. So the technical knowledge is very minimal. So we kept the broker, we kept the client in mind. And the most benefits of it, as I'm showing here, is that it will improve the user experience by being very visually appealing, being very fast. You can export directly to PowerPoint and then send it over. And then at the same time, internally, it will increase the capacity of our workforce. So there's no more time consuming. We can focus on other services for the client as well. And now I'm going to run a very quick demo to show you how this dashboard works and what makes it different than the other stuff. So if we can we please play the video? There's another file. There's a video. No, there's another video. That's the presentation, and then there's a video. Yes. Yeah, that's. So as you can see here, it's a blank widget because we're not uploading anything. So either you can create a new one, or you open a saved one if you're already worked on it. And then you have the question mark, which is a take product tour. So in case you missed any bit or you want to know any additional knowledge, you can find everything here in this product tool. The first bit, it's a blank widget. This is where you choose your structure, and then it will visualize. And then you would have the technical rate. Let's say if you have excess of loss, you can see all your layers. Next to them, you can see all the information needed. And then the KPI matrix. And then you can upload up to 8 structures and compare them next to each other. So once the gross modeling is there, you can choose any structure you want and start testing on it. So in my case, I'm going to start by, let's say, I'm going to select the client here. This client is going to be a demo. We choose the dashboard that we want. And let's say this client has a gross Excel structure. You can see here that this gross Excel consists of risk Excel, and then on cat Excel, it's property and engineering. And you can see the 2 layers for risk Excel. On the left, you would have the deductible and capacity of each layer, and on the right, you would have the entry period, how often we are entering this layer. So all the information are here. But let's say you need to see more information about this layer. You can, let's take an example on the cat. You can just try to click View Details, and everything will show here from limit, deductible, reinstatement, even the price of it. In this case, it's 28%, and the currency, which is euro. So everything is here. It's visually available. And then on the bottom, you would have the layering that I just showed with the details, let's say limit and excess of the deductible, and then you would have the technical rate online, which is the modeled loss that we performed, the market, which is the price. And those comes by default. Those are the table features. And then you can add as many as you want. In this case, I'm going to add a layer currency and the placement. So you can see that it's euro, and it's placed at 100%. And one last feature of this dashboard is the KPI metrics, so you can compare your structure or your portfolio on a gross basis, and when you're applying a, let's say in this example, gross Excel structure. So for example, the ceded premium is 0 on a gross basis, and then when you're applying, it's 16 million. Now it's time to start testing. Let's say we talk to the client or we talk to the broker. We can just save a new structure. In this case, I'm going to name it gross Excel alternative. Once you save it, it will be pinned to the doc, so you would have both of them to compare them. And you can press here on Edit. Once you press on Edit, you can play with the dashboard. In my case, I want to add a layer, so you can add on the top, on the bottom, or let's say you want to do a risk and cat Excel combined at the same time, you can add an extra layer there. Let's say here, we're going to add a sub-layer. It will clone from the layer that's directly next to it. So instead of risk Excel 1 copy, I'm going to name it risk sub-layer. I'm going to keep the same one. Of course, the limit and deductible should be changed. The entry of the second one is 5 million, so I'm going to do 3 in excess of 2. The market rate online, I'm going to keep it the same for now, because later on, we're going to see the technical rate online, and based on this, we can price. And it will show you, of course, many other features if you want to add any. So that's it. The entry is not showing yet because we're not saving. Once we save, everything will be calculated. I'm going to make another quick change, which is the cat Excel. You can see that the entry is 1 in 13, and the deductible is 3 million. Let's say the broker wants to change it to 5 million. They want to test another entry period. Let's say the market is starting at 1 in 20. So we do 5 million, and we adjust the limit. And I'm going to keep the same here for now. Done. So you have everything now. And one last feature I want to add that it's not available here, which is I'm going to add a new feature, which is the placement. I don't want to place the top layer at 100%. Instead, I'm going to place it at 50%. So you can see here that it's placed at 50% directly. If I'm happy with all the changes, I just did exit edit mode, and you can see everything now is updated. And in like seconds, you will see the new. So now we're entering the layer at 1 and 2, and then the new layer for the cat is in 1 and 18, as well as on the bottom. All the layering that we have, they are now updated based on the new one with the new market price, the layer currency, even the placement for the top layer is now 50% instead of 100. Last feature I want to show here as well, you can edit. As we mentioned before, the sub-layer, we kept the same price, but now it's showing me like the technical is 23. So let's say I want to test another price, and I'm going to increase it to 30. Everything, risk factor, market price, everything as well will be changed directly. I'm happy to keep the top cat layer at 4%, exit edit mode, everything is calculated. The new price is here, as well as the impact on profitability now. It has the new alternative structure, so you can compare each one next to each other. You would have the heat map as well. Whenever it's green, it means it's better. Whenever it's red, it's not the best structure. And let's say if I'm happy with one of the structure, I can press on the paint mode here, so I can change anything. And let's say in this case, the box, I want to highlight that this is the structure that I want. Once everything is set, you can press on the 3 dots, and then you can export it to PowerPoint, and then you would have your new structure with the new pricing and all the details related to it. It's here, and then you would have the new one. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now that we have heard from all our panelists, are there any questions I feel obligated to ask you? If not, I will start with one of my own. Okay, now it's very trendy to speak about all these new digital technologies, and we are faring on quite a wave of enthusiasm and high expectations for what artificial intelligence can bring and the other new technologies, digital technologies we did. But are there any challenging aspects? Where is the downside? I don't think that everything is going quite perfect and the benefits are unlimited while there is no negative aspect. What is the most challenging aspect in your opinion? Starting from Laura.
Oh, okay. So I may comment on the modeling side. I think one of the limitation, as you saw, right, I think is create, let's say, catastrophe model with machine learning approach. I mean, I can cite two different aspects, right, of an issue. The first is probably the fact that the machine learning can really learn from the data that exists. So I think it's maybe struggling, for example, to represent extremes, right? Because they have never seen in the training data set. So this is why basically we need to have the traditional statistics and physics behind that. So there's a few technological limitations, I would say, but maybe in the future we may overcome that. But I would say another aspect which is super important for our industry is the transparency of those models as well. Because of course we know insurance is a heavily regulated business, so we need to explain what is beyond the hood of our models, right? So if we use machine learning, sometimes it can be very untransparent. So a lot of work that needs to be done is about how to explain those algorithms. And I would say, maybe to give you just an example, when I was talking about the flood maps as an example, we tried different machine learning algorithms. And for example, we tried between deep learning, you know, this neural network where there is an input and output in the middle, we are not really sure what's happening, and other type of algorithms, such as the decision trees, where it's very simple to categorize things. And if you, the approach typically is if you see the same performance between those two algorithms, choose the second, because you can more explain that, right? So that's basically one approach. But of course, this is always a challenge. This kind of explanatory AI is really something that we need to tackle in our business, because each time we need to produce a model, you need you as a user to understand how this has been done. And this is one of the main challenges we have to overcome, I would say.
Anything to add from the modeling perspective?
I entirely agree with you, actually. Essentially, in my opinion, AI currently is very good at compiling the readily available data. Very good and fast. You can have a good summary of information from AI easily in a very fast way. The most important thing here is that you have to decide whether that information is obtained from reliable sources. That's very critical. So essentially everything depends on the quality of your data. And if you know how to implement the AI methodologies on a good quality data, then you will have, you will make use of it easily in a beneficial way. I mean, we have been trying to, implement AI technologies in our databases in some of our projects, and we see that, for example, if you just throw some data uncautiously, the results of AI might be very biased. So in that sense, you have to know how to feed the AI technology with good quality data, and you have to know what kind of methodology you should be implementing, to solve your problem. So these should be very, carefully studied. I'm sure that after a while, AI will take over the conventional methodologies. But for a long time, the conventional methodologies and AI technologies, they will walk hand in hand for a long time.
Dario, do you have something to add?
Oh, sure.
Your perspective?
I just show it silly example how the artificial intelligence didn't help a lot, but a lot, and at all. But I can say that definitely there are a lot of applications. One example is, for example, in the this platform for insurance, administration of the insurance, we are adopting the artificial intelligence to evaluate, increase the plausibility of the gathering of the claims coming from this one event, one cat event. So the management is not easy at all, and many times companies are leaving or adding things, claims that are not involved directly. So the artificial intelligence increase the plausibility, but do not avoid the human intervention, because I can have in a hail event at the same moment, at the same time, one fire that doesn't have anything to do. So just the human being can pick it up and explode it. But this helps a lot, helps and speed up the process.
As the professor mentioned, that the AI is as good as the data you feed in. So sometimes, as we know from technical perspective, that we receive historical data that lacks a lot of missing bit. So AI would make some assumptions that they are not clear. And whenever you are justifying your assumption to the client,
Sorry. I tried to
no problem.
cover it.
Yeah. So whenever you are justifying your assumption, it has to be clear. And it will look at stuff from one aspect. So for example, this is a topic that we're discussing a lot, is the risk-adjusted flat pricing. If you, let's say you bring 3 actuaries, each one will give you a different methodology. And all of them would be correct. Like one would use the risk factor, another one would use the mid-layer interpolation, another one would use the curve, like the power curve of last year of the debrief. So, and all of them can be justified, while AI would look at it from one aspect only, which can be limited sometimes. So that's the challenge I believe we can face.
How long do you think it will take for these systems using machine learning, AI, the machine thinking for us to be completely trustful and reliable? So you can use them without asking yourself if even maybe something is wrong there. I'm asking because previous years, for decades, all these processes were very hands-on. The people working with these things were calculating for themselves, selecting data, taking decisions, etc., etc. And now, slowly, or not so slowly, we are going towards a situation where it's something like a black box system. You put some data required there, and it comes a conclusion on the other end, and you don't know very well what's inside and how it works. How are people looking at this thing? How much do they trust it and are willing to embrace it, let's say, for the time being?
Well, I would say maybe everything that touch to AI is highly non-linear. I mean, if you look at the kind of AI tool you are using, probably like ChatGPT or the equivalent, I think each time OpenAI is releasing a new version of it, I mean, this is just improving the performance. I wouldn't say it will be always with some error in it, right? But I think this is difficult to forecast what is basically the level of accuracy that is basically reaching in 1, 2, or 10 years. I would say all the topic of explainable AI is becoming a growing industry in itself, right? I think there are even companies starting just to develop tools to explain other machine learning algorithms, which is like an interesting element. So there's a concern on that. I would say in terms of the time, probably specifically for our industry, one of the limitations is not maybe the evolution of the tool, is basically how are we prepared to implement that in our insurance business, because one of the core, I would say, hinder or maybe something that prevent the adoption of AI very often in the insurance industry and other industries is the fact that you need to have all data in the same place. If you want to draw a correlation between loss, claim, and model, those losses, there needs to be in the same system, right? I think so. If you have different systems, you cannot use AI in this process, right? So this is probably where the limitation will be more in terms of the adoption, rather than the tool being explainable or reliable or evolution. The evolution will be very fast, but now how much can we follow that? That's the next topic, right?
So probably the next topic will be how to balance or to align adoption with the actual technical development of the systems. Well, maybe we will talk next year, who knows. That being said, our panel reached its end. Thank you very much. Please give a hand of applause to our panelists. And hope you found it interesting. And with that, I'm passing the floor
Dear
to
Daniela and the speakers, they will take a photo of you there. In the meantime, I would like to use these moments to give you some information. We are at the end of our panels. First of all, I would like to thank to Insurance Companies Association and all the sponsors, all the delegates for their support to our organization and to our event. We are coming at the last session of 4th Summit and 17th International Istanbul Insurance Conference. Now I would like to make an announcement. There is a present from Gallagher Re, and it is a lottery, and the winner is Milli Re, Ms. Hilal Özgündüz. She win an iPad from Gallagher Re. Please, Hilal Hanım, find the Gallagher Re team for your present. And can I have a big applause for all the sponsors, participants, speakers? Başkan Bey, applause.